Their heads still spinning this morning. Let's head to Midtown New York, and we're joined by our North America correspondent Stephanie March, who has been at the centre of these extraordinary developments. Stephanie, good morning. Downtown there, where Hillary Clinton has just conceded as well. What's the mood?
Well, Virginia, as Barack Obama said a few hours before the results came out yesterday, no matter what happens, the sun will come up tomorrow. Now, that prediction paid true, but there are some pretty cloudy, gloomy skies here in New York today, and that's how a lot of Hillary Clinton supporters are feeling. I've been getting messages from a lot of them across the country this morning. They're saying things, they just feel gutted, they are shocked. Some of them are even saying they're getting together to think about the next election. They're just so stunned by what's happened. And I think that really was borne out at her supposed election night party last night that just wasn't. Just watching people's faces as they saw that big map of America turn red and their hopes and dreams just fade very, very quickly. But on the flip side here in New York, this is also the home of Donald Trump. His supporters are jubilant. Speaking to a lot of them yesterday morning as they were queuing up to cast their ballots, they were hopeful, but they weren't overly confident. He wasn't leading in the polls heading into Election Day. But we've seen a few of them last night and early this morning, and they've just got these big smiles on their faces at this very surprising result.
It seems obvious to most that this is the end of the public life for Hillary Clinton. Is that the sense that people had in the room?
Very much so. The one thing that a lot of her supporters were saying after it was clear that she wasn't going to win the election is that they would keep fighting for what they believed in and the causes they'd worked for. A lot of the people at her event last night had campaigned for her for over a year and work in a lot of the areas where her causes lie, helping women and families and children. And they said that they would carry on that work. And that was also the message we heard from Hillary Clinton this morning. She was, as she said, disappointed and said it was painful and would take some time to get over, but that she believes that if America works together, it can be stronger and that potentially the country's best days are ahead of us. So there was a sense of optimism. There was seemingly, among a few people, a bit of a reluctance to maybe reach across the aisle at this stage from the Clinton camp and start talking to Republicans and all those people who voted for Donald Trump, but it may be something they have to come to terms with over the next 4 years.
And just finally, I guess practically speaking, what now for President-elect Donald Trump? There are some practicalities here about what he has to do and of course, where he is and where he lives.
Very much so, and we know from inside the campaign, the Trump campaign, that even they didn't expect to win early on yesterday. So this has come as quite a shock. And Barack Obama, as you mentioned, he's called Donald Trump and invited him to the White House tomorrow to begin that transition process. Not only will he have to navigate the White House, but there's also Congress. It's the first time in 6 years that a president will also hold control of Congress in the same party. He's never been in elected office before, so he has to navigate Capitol Hill, and that will probably include relying on some of those close advisors he has, including his Vice President Mike Pence, who's a governor, and Senator Jeff Sessions, among other people, to help him try and work out those halls of power in Washington. So there is a lot to come for Donald Trump in the next 2 months before Inauguration Day in January.
A fascinating time ahead. Steph March, good to talk to you. Thank you. Let's bring in our North America correspondent, Stephanie March, who's in Midtown New York. That's where Hillary Clinton conceded just a short time ago. How are Hillary Clinton's supporters dealing with this disappointment?
Virginia, I'm just outside Trump Tower now, which is the home of the president-elect. And there's a group of protesters not far away, Hillary Clinton supporters, who are just devastated. I was chatting to them a short time ago, and many of them just say they're still in shock. Some of them are holding signs that say, "He is not my president." Some of them have some even more crude things to say about the president-elect, and they're just really in shock. They honestly were expecting a Hillary Clinton victory. That's what the polls were predicting. That's what the media was predicting. And for a long time last night, that's what Donald Trump's campaign thought was going to happen. So they're struggling to come to terms with it. But also on the flip side here in New York today, you've got Donald Trump supporters who are just jubilant. Many of them hoped this would happen. They didn't necessarily expect it would happen. Again, next to the protesters, the students from Vassar College who are protesting against Donald Trump just next to me. down the road. There's a group of Blacks for Trump people who are holding signs in support of him, and they're trying to engage in conversations with people walking past, saying, hey, give our new president a chance. So there's some really mixed emotions as people come to terms with the result from yesterday.
And what are we expecting from Donald Trump in the next 24 hours? We know that he's had a conversation with Barack Obama.
That's right. So President Obama called him at about 3:30 in the morning after Donald Trump gave his victory speech. He congratulated him and he invited him to the White House tomorrow to begin that transition process. As we heard from Barack Obama, he wants this transition process to be smooth. He spoke about how he and George Bush had differences in 2008, but the Bush team made his transition into the White House incredibly smooth, and he would like to do that for his successor, Donald Trump. Donald Trump has communicated to his fans and supporters and America this morning on one of his preferred means of communication, and that's Twitter. And he said to them, it's such a beautiful and important day. The forgotten men and women will never be forgotten again. We will all come together like never before. Now, that's going to be a big task for Donald Trump. This country is incredibly divided, and also he's going into the White House with no experience in public office. So there's going to be a lot ahead of him, but that will start with a trip to Washington tomorrow to meet with President Barack Obama.
Steph, thanks so much. Good to talk to you. Well